Today is February 8th, 2007, and this is the beginning of an interview with Pete Arias at Santa Maria, California. Mr. Arias is 88 years old, having been born on December the 16th, 1919. My name is Joanne Cargill, and I'll be the interviewer. You ready to get started, Pete?
Might as well.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your life before you joined the military.
Well, before I joined the military, I was born in Linwood, California, and my father was a farmer, strictly farmer. We're from Mexican descent, we ended up with 5 boys, 5 girls. Before my mother passed away when she was about 41 years old. She was still a young woman, and from then on, my dad, he thought that he had enough boys to help him out on the farm, and it turned out to be that that worked there. I did not care to be a farmer, and I didn't have the nerve enough to tell my father that. So we went on. We used to work weekends, holidays, what have you. We was all the time getting up early in the morning, late at night. Finally, at World War II.
Pete, when Pearl Harbor was bombed and you heard about it, where were you?
By that time, I had broke away from being a farmer. Because I told my dad, I says I've had farming, I just don't like to be a farmer. So I went to live with my sister. Yeah, and by that time the war broke out. I think it was December 7th, I think. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, uh-oh, now is my time to get away from everything, And I always used to read these little paperbacks, about being pilots and the Marines and so forth, and that had me a little bit excited about. So I said I sure like to be a pilot, And I still wish I had been a pilot. But during the time when I was a fireman, my father, he thought the farmer was more important than our education. And when we was going to school, half the time I wasn't at school, because my father, he just kept us from going to school and so forth, and the truant officer used to come there to take us back to school. He might as well moved in with us because we didn't go to school. Here's the truant officer waiting for us, and he'd take us back to school. And so my education was short. I don't know how I got as far as the 9th grade. Because as far as schooling, I didn't have any schooling.
So the way I understand it, then in February of '42, you joined the Marine Corps?
Well, it was the war had been going on already. Mm-hmm. in December, and so one day I used to have this little portable radio, and I used to listen to the war all the time. And one time I says, you know what? I'm 16 years old already. I said, my father has got nothing to do with me. I can go over there and enlist on my own account. So I had a friend of mine that was going to go with me. I says, come on, Sam, let's go join the service. He says, okay. So off we went, and we went to Los Angeles at the courthouse. At that time, with this war going on, recruiting was just about every day. So we went there, and I don't know what, the first thing we see in the Marine Corps. So I says, okay, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and by that time my friend chickened out on me. So I was all by myself alone. So I joined the Marine Corps. I got sworn in and everything. So I went back home, and I told my sister, I says, hey, sis, I just joined the Marines. She says, you did not. I said, yes, I did. I says, you got to take me Sunday. It was on the weekend. He says, you got to take me Sunday to the courthouse. So her and her husband took me up there, and then by 11 o'clock at night or something like that, they had a busload, and off we went to San Diego.
So you went to San Diego for boot camp?
Yes, and that was my first encounter with military.
Did you find boot camp difficult?
No, during the war, boot camp was short, because they was trying to get you out of there as fast as they could, you know, and due to the fact that this war was going on, so they'd run you there like, you know, I think I was in boot camp for about, I think it was a month or maybe less, I don't know, or more, but I don't remember. And after boot, they sent me to Camp Elliott, where they used to send all the recruits. And while I was over there, I was wandering around the camp there, you know, this strictly Mexican kid, lost, and didn't know, you know, you could volunteer me into anything, you know, because, so this other friend of mine, he says, hey Pete, he says, is the guy over here talking about new outfit? He says, and pardon my language, he called it a shit-kicking outfit. I says, well, let's go. So we went up there, listened to the guy, and after he finished, you know, they had little special rooms where they could interview you. So he says, you want to try it? I says, might as well. So I ended up in this interview room with with this captain by the name of James Roosevelt. It didn't dawn on me yet who James Roosevelt was, except the captain of the Marine Corps with this other SEO. And they questioned me, and I don't know what I said. But before you know it, they said, well, you have been accepted. He says, go to the other room and wait there. So I did, and then by the late in the afternoon, there was this friend of mine that was there. He came in. He also had been accepted, and the two other guys, I don't know who they was, and that's all.
And that was to be accepted for the Raiders?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then so off we went to marching down the road. We didn't know where we was going, and about a mile away or so, we ended up in this place that there was a bunch of tents there already, and the guy that was in charge, he says, well, this is going to be where you're going to be. And so when we was there, when I went there, they put me in this company, C company. That was being formed. There was already two companies there, A and B, and they was forming C and D. So they put me in C company. So
that was the B, 2nd Battalion.
And then they told us, they says, so you are now second raider. That sounded exciting, being a raider. I never heard of that. And then later on, I heard that these outfits that they were forming were the only one the type of outfit that the Marine Corps had ever had, and the reason that I went in the second there that everything went so easy. I found out that James Roosevelt, the one that had interviewed me, was the president's son, which I didn't know. And after that, we got everything, because all he had to do was go to his dad, and he got it. And then they found out that Colonel Carlson, he was a major at that time. It was supposed to have been our CO, the battalion commander, and he had a history too. That he had been in China, where he got the idea of all this, the way that we was going to operate. And he had one word that everybody here now uses, and it doesn't mean what they use it for. They come out with that word, gung-ho. Gung-ho means one thing, work together. And we was known as the gung-ho raiders.
So I imagine you went to some extensive training with the Raiders.
We did.
Mm-hmm. And then
we went to real extensive, the hand fighting, knife throwing, everything you could think of to dismantle a human being, gouging eyes, biting, everything, and so forth. So.
Were you excited to do this? Or did you think
Yeah,
this was really something?
I was excited then, but by that time being that outfit like that. Mm-hmm. And we went through that training, like I said, because they was forming another company, D Company, and they sent us to San Clemente Island to train on riverboats, pulling you in riverboats and dumping you in the water and picking you up like you see in the movies sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that went on for about a month or so. Come back to Jack's farm where we was training. See, by that time I was pretty cocky. I was still a private. and finally, I think after they formed D Company, which we was still training. Marchers, night marchers, everything, and we was getting all this good equipment. They issued us this gung-ho knife that I can display here, if you care to. And the second Raiders were the only ones that had one. The Raider Battalion. And we got some. We weren't dressed like Marines. We had fancy boots, fancy jackets that said Raiders and all that stuff, and that kind of went to our head, I think, a little bit,
So then eventually you shipped out to Pearl Harbor in preparation for...
Yes, after we trained there for a while, I think it was May that they said, well, I think we're in force now. We got 4 companies, and we're ready to go. So we went to San Diego, and we walked to San Diego. no ride or nothing. So we ended up, and they put us in this boat, and they said, we're going to take you to Pearl Harbor, to Honolulu. And
did you have a sense that you were going to be going off to war now to combat?
They told us while we was in the Raiders, says, you guys being the Raiders, you probably will be the first ones to win the war. I'm just joking. But he said, you guys will probably see action before anybody else will. So when we got to Honolulu, I don't know how long it took, they assigned us to this camp that was, it wasn't a camp, it was just a field, it was empty. It had a little lake there, and they says, and we was there, they says, okay, he says, hold on, he says, C and D do not bother to unpack your sea bags. He said, you are not going to stay here. So I thought to myself, I said, where to now? You know, I said, you being there, I'd lost. I'd been lost ever since I got in the Marine Corps. Probably being a little old private. But a couple of days later, I found myself on this destroyer, you know, and with our company, with C Company, and then they told us, he says, you guys are going to Midway, and like everything else, everybody says, where is Midway? So they said, well, you'll find out. And then in the meantime, we had picked up a cargo ship that we was escorting up there. And it was a pretty good sized ship because we could see it had a bunch of equipment on there, you know. And so here we go, and I don't remember I don't remember how long it took us to get to Midway. But just before we got to Midway, the couple days before we got to Midway, we had a little excitement. I think that a Japanese submarine was going to make a try for the cargo ship, and so our destroyer we was in, he went into their maneuvers, you know, all over the place. It looked like it was sideways sometimes, and they started dumping their depth charges. I just happened to be on Gunwatch that day. Look at me, and all of a sudden I saw this thing come out of the water, and we got to shoot at it. I mean,
it was a Japanese submarine.
It was a Japanese. Then we got word that we had just sunk a Japanese submarine. Finally, when we got to Midway, they told us what we was there for. They said, you guys, he says we're glad to see you guys. He says that they haven't gotten word where they gotten word, but they said that the Japanese was going to invade Midway. And we thought to ourselves, well, what good can a company do here? You know, and so when we went ashore, the company there, and they said that the first thing they told us is start digging holes where you can put a squad in. So we done a pretty good size holes, and then we had these little goonivers run loose. I think it was maiden season. You just walk around there and they peck at your ankles, and and if you didn't watch it, you'd run over, you'd step on them and everything like that. And that got to be
So you weren't being shot at when you landed on Midway?
No, we haven't, not yet. So they told us, well, you are going to reinforce us, you know. So we went through their training, and the Gerson they had gun watches all over the island, and that's what we done. We helped them stand watches, stuff like that. And then it got to be funny that we knew we were supposed to be invaded by that time, and every night we go to bed and it says, tonight's the night. And it kept going, it says, tonight's the night. And that went on until June, I think. And then all of a sudden, one night, or one morning there's all kinds of bombing going on. The island was being bombed by airplanes. I thought to myself, today's the day.
Was it American planes that were bombing or
No,
Japanese?
the Japanese, we didn't know that the Navy was around there. We didn't know that. We thought that we was just sitting ducks where we was at. But these Japanese had gone through, and they bombed us for about a half a day and stuff like that. And I got to shoot at airplanes, didn't hit nothing. We had one plane crash right there close to where we was at, and he hit so hard that that's the first time I saw a dead person. But there was all they had was they had no heads, no arms, no legs. They hit so hard that everything was just flew off, you know. So again, we thought we was cocky. I said you know, there was no more bombing then. Then we found out that the Navy had been waiting for the Japanese, and that was one of the biggest naval battles they had at that time. When it was kind of the turn of the events as far as the Navy and the Japanese Navy were concerned, because we created a lot of damage to their equipment, to their Navy. They did the same to us, and we went through that battle, and that's what it all was. So, can you turn that over now?
All right, Pete, after the Battle of Midway, then where did you go?
After the Battle of Midway, they put us aboard a ship, and we headed back to where we came from, Honolulu. And when we got to Honolulu, they was our battalion was on the verge of training. They was supposed to go to this place they call Macon Island, and they were supposed to go in. They got wind or something like that. I don't know what the story is, but they was supposed to be only about 45 Japanese there. We was going to go in there that night. We were supposed to go in there and wipe them out or do whatever we done best and get out the same day. But it didn't turn out to be that way. And the reason that I haven't said it yet, the reason I was in that raid is because when we come back from Midway, they wanted some volunteers because they didn't have enough people to go. So they had kind of a lotto deal, picking names because everybody wanted to go. And being so lucky like I was, I got picked.
So even after your combat experience at Midway, you still wanted to go to combat again?
Yes. And
more that way.
but
and you weren't.
But,
you said
but
you
I
weren't.
didn't see too much action in Midway. Just shot at airplanes. Anyway, when they was so they picked me, and I ended up in one of the submarines. My commanding officer was Lieutenant Petros, and so we ended up with our training of disembarking submarines, blowing our boats, and everything worked fine while we was just practicing with the two submarines. Well, and anyway, after we got through with our practice, off we are again. We're gone, and it took us, I think, about 7 days to get there. And in the meantime, they told us we was going to go to this raid. It was just an easy one. He said there was some Japanese, about 45 Japanese. We were going to go in and come out the same day, but it did not work that way. When we got there, it was the seas were rough. Everything was rough, and you couldn't see nothing because it was dark. And I think everybody was confused by that time. Their engines would not start like they did when we was training. They wouldn't start, and then I don't think everybody was together. Another submarine, they landed someplace else. Anyway, when we landed there, everybody did not land where they were supposed to. They were scattered all over the island in little groups.
How big was your group? What,
Uh,
20, 30 guys, or?
I don't remember how many guys were in there. In fact, I don't even remember who was in charge. You know, and by that time I was confused and a little bit.
So everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah, everything was wrong, and thing was not going on the way it was supposed to be going on. Anyway, when the thing started, one group was here, one group was there, and then just before they landed there, somebody let loose with a accidental discharge and let out a burst that I think it must have woke up everybody. And then we knew that that they were going to be waiting for us, and that's what they was waiting for us.
So you said you thought there was a small force of Japanese,
Yes.
but it turned out to be a larger force?
Yes, they thought it was there's been about 40-some Japs. It turned out to be there was about 200 around there, roaming around there, which we did not know. And that island was small. Everybody was roaming around. You'd meet with a little group of men, and then you'd meet with another group of men, and before you know it, you end up with a bunch, and you done what you were supposed to do, or you thought you were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, that went on. It wasn't going in and out by that time. We was there to stay for a little while. And on one side of the island there was a big lagoon that our group happened to come across the lagoon, and we shot down two seaplanes trying to take off. We shot them down. And then we started getting strafed by the Japanese, and we was taught that when you see airplanes, just don't do nothing, just sit still, and that's what we done. And so they strafed us, but they didn't hit anybody. Anyway, this thing went on. That everybody was confused. It was a mass confusion, in other words. Finally, when we all grouped together, the people weren't where they were supposed to be. Anyway, when it was all over, we didn't even know that we have shot everybody on the island. And the colonel, he didn't know either.
This was Colonel Carlson.
Carlson, and there was Jimmy Roosevelt there also, you know, and so we got together in there, and finally they captured the Japanese, and the Japanese, he told us there was no more Japanese. So and then in the meantime, people were trying to go back to the submarines, and it was rough. That they drowned. I think where we lost the men was drowning and so forth. So finally, the submarines decided they wanted to go around the lagoon into the lagoon there, where the water was calm, and that's where the rest of the guys.
Is that where you boarded the submarine?
That's where I boarded the submarine, and off we went. We didn't know what our casualties were yet. And then when we ended up in Honolulu, they let us go to the Royal Hawaii Hotel. We stayed there a week, and then we find that then after they counted their casualties, we found out that we had left some people there. We didn't know who they was. In fact, they still, I don't think, knew how many we left there until later on we found out that we had left 9 people there.
How did you feel when you heard that?
I didn't feel too good. You know, every time I heard of any of our troops getting killed, especially that way, the way they beheaded them, you know, I always used to say, gee, I'm sure glad I didn't get captured or something like that. And I don't know why. I was always lucky in my excursions. So like I say, we went back to Honolulu. After that, we went back to camp where we was at. And then in the meantime, I think we changed camps from where we was at in Honolulu. We ended up in this, I think it was this, I'm not sure now, I don't know.
That's all right.
We ended up in this camp they call New Hebrides Islands, I think. That we ended up there. And then after that, we trained there for, I don't know, for a while. We didn't do too much. I got dysentery, got sick. Then I was keeping there. And in the meantime, there was when I had dysentery, they said, well, we're going to go to Guadalcanal, I think. Mm-hmm. And this is, and me being sick, well, I wasn't sick by then, you know, they was going to leave me behind, you know, and I says, no way. So I talked to somebody, and they accept me to go, you know.
Even though you were sick, huh?
No, I wasn't sick no more, but I just got over my sickness. So we ended up over there in Guadalcanal, you know. By that time, the first raiders had been in Guadalcanal, and they went to their excursion, Blair Ridge, and Tulagi, and so forth. And so I ended up in this place they called Iola Bay, one end of the island, and we had the destroyers, the Calhoun and the Manly, and another one that I can't remember the name of them. They dropped us off at this end of the island, and the word was that we were supposed to harass the Japs. We were supposed to be operating behind the Japanese lines. And that sounded exciting too. You know, every time I heard something like that, it used to excite me. I don't know why. You know, I wasn't brave or nothing like that, but, you know, and could you turn that on now?
Go ahead.
Okay, when we landed in Guadalcanal, there was 2 companies land there. C Company and E Company. I don't remember what E Company then, because all I was involved with C Company, because that was my company, and whatever happened every place else, I could less, because I was just taking care of ourselves. So anyway, we started out from one of the island, and we just kept going through the islands there, and then we running into little bunches of Japanese, and so far we never had no casualties, and we kept by we shoot 3 or 4 of them, and then some more, tramp some more through the jungles, and then we run into some more Japanese, and then in the meantime, we start picking up natives to follow us around, and and during that time we picked up this this native that the Japanese had captured and tortured him and everything else, and when he escaped, his name was Bougainville, anyway, and then they gave him the rank of sergeant major, and he follows around, and he was the chief of all these natives, so everybody there had more or less had their native to carry his stuff. You know, we didn't have no food. All we was issued is a couple of sacks of rice, you know, and what we had, you know, as far as rations, you know. Of course, they didn't last long anyway. And while we was going through there, I found this bush. They had little chilies, and there was hot chilies. And me, I like chilies, being a Mexican, you know. And so when you eat one, and you thought you was chewing on napalm, it was so hot. So anyway, you know, I used to mix that with my rice, and everything went pretty good. Finally, we kept going, and ran into Japs, and then I don't know what day it was, but the date I do know, it was, by that time it was November 11th, Armistice Day. After we had trampled through the jungles from one end to the other, the word was that there was a group of Japanese, and we was going to go surprise them and attack them. And by that time we had this captain, we all called him Muscles, because all he liked to do is exercise and stuff like that. And he wasn't, I think we had picked him up when we was, just before we hit the island. And when we was there, our company, our platoon, they said, you guys got the point. And then from the platoon, they pick you a squad, a point ahead of them. So we was in the lead. And if you are familiar with points, you know what a point is. The point is the first people that run into the enemy, or vice versa, or something like that.
Were you scared to be the point? Or nervous?
No. You know what, I don't remember, but I don't think I was scared. I was a group leader. I wasn't a squad leader. I was still a private. And we had this corporal that was in charge of our company, of our squad, you know, and so we come up to this open field. The field was I think it's about 1,000 yards, you know,
That's that field.
with grass up to our waists, and it was nothing in between. The jungle was on one side, and jungle on one side. So we come to the jungle there, and my corporal stop. Pretty soon, our company commander, he come walking up. He says, "What's the hold up?" And my corporal said, I was standing right there. He says, "Captain," he says, I don't think we should walk across that field." And the captain says, "Go ahead." He says, "We haven't even reached our objective yet." And me being a private, with all the schooling and lectures that I've gotten, I thought to myself, well, you don't do that in hostile country. Either you send up a squad or something like that as a reconnaissance in the area. But no, he said, take off. So being this corporal, I guess he didn't want to buck the captain, so here we go. And here we go up to across this field. And just before we got there from here, I think it was but the length of the half length of a football field or closer. I saw my squad leader put his hand up in the air to, you know, and when he done that, a machine gun opened up and just wiped him out, and they kept going and wiped out our squad where we was in it. It only left me and 2 other guys there, and then after a while, naturally was trying to dig with your fingers. I mean, when you hear weapons going on, it sounds like they're right next to your ear, and you're scratching everything to dig low enough. And by that time, the rest of our platoon had come up, and we was in a skirmish time. We weren't sure ourselves, because every time somebody showed us that machine gun would open up. So our platoon leader was Maitland, the guy by the name of Maitland. So he says, "Hey Pete," he says, "Where's your squad?" I said, "I don't have a squad." He says, "I got my group." He says, 2 guys. He says, "Move up." And I thought myself, is this guy crazy? I could hear the Japanese up there. I could hear them hammering, talking, and just jabbering, you know. So I'd wrestle the weeds, you know. And he says, "Hey Pete, you move?" I said, "No." And then there's another book sergeant, our platoon guy. He said, "Mainly you move up." No, and then our platoon leader says, "Okay, man, let's get up and let's charge them." And then this other sergeant says, "Okay, Maitland, you get up first and we'll follow you." Then the guy says, in so many words, not nice words, he said, "Heck no." So that went on all day just about it. And then the sun was hotter than heck. And I'll always remember November 11th, Armistice Day, and then all of a sudden we was there in a skirmish line. All of a sudden things went quiet, you know, and I don't know what happened really. To this day I don't know what happened, and there was no more talking as far as our troops were concerned. And I whispered to the guy, nobody answered. Finally found out that they have gotten the word somehow to withdraw. And I didn't get the word. I was the only one left. You know, and all these Japanese out there jabbering their way. So I said, so I sat there and I didn't know what to do, really. And see, I didn't know what to do being by myself then. You scared? You betcha.
Now you're scared.
and so finally that went on. So I said, heck with these people. So heck, I started going back to where we just about the direction that I came from it. And then when I was in there, when I was crawling away there, I heard a rustling in the weeds there, and here comes another guy.
Another Marine.
Another Marine. He of our platoon. He wasn't in our squad. Nothing. His name was Thinnermeyer. And I says he didn't have no weapon. He threw away his weapon. He didn't have nothing. So we crawling around there, and then by that time it got dark. Next day we were still crawling, and and pretty soon I guess our company starts. They were shooting mortars, but they was landing short in front of us instead of back of us. So we crawl and crawl, and finally I got tired of crawling. So I says, Thinnemire, let's get out up and walk out of here. He says, hell no. He says, I crawled this far, I'm gonna crawl all the way out. I says, well, so I crawled with him. Finally, we crawled some more, but in the afternoon there again, I says, Thinnemire, if I get up, will you follow? He said, yeah. So I got up, and nothing happened. So we went back to where I thought our company was. I didn't see nobody around. And just before we got to the edge of the jungle where we had let everybody got up cheering, you know. And I said, and I was inquiring, hey, what happened there? How come you guys left me there? And nobody could explain it to me. So, and then I had a little friend of mine that I had gotten acquainted with. His name was Happy. He come running the place. He says, God damn, he says, you black Mexican. He says, here I was looking for you all day and all night. I say, what was you doing? Sleeping probably with it. So
what a story. How scary for you.
So that was the end of that Asamana deal. In fact, that was the end to, I would say, to Asamana, that picture you got
Okay,
there.
let's show that picture.
Go patrol, whatever it is.
And then point to yourself.
So this picture here is what now, Pete?
This picture is a picture that I had a friend of mine he used to do sketches pretty good, so I had him sketch this thing out. This picture here, it shows our company coming over here and our patrol, the point patrol here, and it also shows the machine gun, the Japanese machine gun that we happened to walk. We kept going more. Yeah, I mean, I think we surprised them, more or less. It was bivouac there, and we surprised them, and I guess they were surprised. So was we, and they shot. I mean, we had a little bit of casualties then for our first time in Guadalcanal there. 30 days behind the Japanese.
30 days at Guadalcanal, huh?
Yeah, and then there was, by that time, I think that was the worst engagement we got into.
So after the Battle of Guadalcanal, then you regrouped again
Yes.
and went to Bougainville?
I don't remember there, Joanna, to tell you the truth. We went to some island, I think it was New Caledonia, I'm not sure, or something like that. And by that time I think we started reforming the Raiders battalions, you know. So by that time we heard they had the 3rd Raiders, 4th Raiders, and so forth. So we just trained there just like everybody else did, or just like the Marine Corps did. We got to see the president's wife.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
Eleanor.
Eleanor, and
She came.
she came to see it, to review us and all that kind of,
Oh.
and talk about a face. I mean,
Is that when she made the remark about the Marines?
no, the Marines were better looking. Hey, man, tell me.
Okay.
Huh?
So then you went to Bougainville.
Oh yeah, we trained there, and then they thought they hit Bougainville, but the third raiders and the second raiders, but they don't mention the second raiders for some reason. Anyway, we ended up, I think in November 1st or something like that. I don't know.
November 1st.
Yeah, in Bougainville, and talking about a muddy island. I never saw so much mud in my life, to tell you the truth, and that's where I lost several of my buddies right there on the beach, you know, when we were kind of invaded. So they told us to walk straight out when we landed. We started walking. Before you know it, I was in water up to my waist. And I said, "Hey, I can't go on this way." So they called us back. And we went around and found a trail, and that's the way we went. So, but Bougainville, to me, wasn't much of a excursion really. To tell you the truth, I saw a little bit of action there, but it wasn't much to talk about. There was one part that after we went inland a while, and they had a form, I call it a friendly line, in front of them about 1,000 yards. There was a company used to stand. They used to have to go there. Outpost, you might call it. That's what we call it. They used to spend the evening there. Different outfits every night. So it was our turn to go. We went up there. It was nice and quiet, except for some airplane come by and drop a bomb from us and made a big crater, and that's about it. So next morning, we got relieved by this H company. It was like that, and we were supposed to go back to, you know, rest, something like that. And I don't think we was there overnight. And then next morning he says, "Get up, we're going back." I said, "Going back where?" "Going back to where you came from. Ant company just got hit, and they're surrounded, and they can't get out." So, oh, here we go again. And when we got there was a little creek there that morning. There's a bunch of airplanes had been bombing already. There was all kinds of you know, Japanese all torn apart from bombs, and a lot of more laying face. I guess they must have been walking because they're laying face down, stuff like that. So we said, so our company we set a perimeter there, and so he said, "Wait here," because the company over there is withdrawn, and we're supposed to support them. So they was withdrawn there. There was a guy next to me, and he got shot right through his mouth, come out the back end of his head, and then finally after a while, the people kept coming back, and all that time there was firing going on and stuff like that, and finally after it was all over, this guy come over there. He says, "Hey," he says, I'm the last one." He says, "You guys might as well start moving back." So we did, and he says, "Okay," he said, "Pete, Kerry Walker, the guy that was right next to me, you know, he was dead already, and so I carried him back to where everything was, you know, was normal, and that was that, and really that was the extent of action that we saw in Bougainville. Well, we got they disbanded us.
You disbanded the Raiders.
The Raiders
Mhm.
completely.
Right. And then, what was your next battle engagement?
The next one, they sent me back to the States, and they put me in the fifth Marine Division.
And the 5th Marine Division went to Iwo Jima.
That's up to this point. I used to seeing all my buddies get killed, wounded, and everything like that. Not a scratch for me. You know, I was a healthy Mexican. I guess anyone that hurt me. So when we hit, when we got to
Iwo Jima?
no, they put us in this big island in Hawaii, the Big Island, and they put us in this camp they call Capturawa, and that's where we trained. We didn't know where we was going yet. And then later on, they after we left the island, we found out that we was on our way to Iwo Jima, and we went in circles for a long time there, and my wife asked me, said, "What were you doing going around in circles?" We was picking up a task force to hit Iwo Jima. You know, it was a big task force supposed to be over there. So here we go, and then after they had their task force all ready to go, we went up there. We got to Iwo. There was ships just bombing the island, and they we could see them aboard ship. All these, I think everybody was shooting over Iwo, and they was hitting Mountain Suribachi. Every time they hit Mount Suribachi, you see it crumbling down, and I thought to myself, heck, there ain't nobody living there with all this bombing. So and then the 28th Marines of the 5th Marine were the first to land. So they landed there, and they landed close to the island, to the Suribachi. I mean, they're the ones that put up the flags and all that baloney.
Were you still on the ship when the flag went up, or were you on the island then?
No.
You were on the island.
No, I was already shot.
All right, so you landed and you got shot.
Huh? I landed. I didn't get shot right away. And then they said, they got our turn to land, and we landed about 11 o'clock that morning. And we landed there. That's the first time I landed on that island. It smelled sulfur, and it was real soft sand. You sink up to your ankles, up to your knees. And when we landed there, I happened to see a satchel charge that somebody had dropped. So I thought to myself, hey, I'll pick it up, take it with me. So we went over so by that time I was already a sergeant, and I had a squad, I leading a squad. Some of the guys used to, after that was over, they used to tell me, he said, Pete, he says, I don't know how you done it. He says, we was all crawling around the thing, and you was just walking, standing up, kicking everybody in the front. He said, come on, let's move, and stuff like that, you know. So here we go, we moved until we come up to this, and before I go anywhere, every revetment hole in that island was already zeroed in. There's a man, you know, it's a man's instinct. As soon as he hears fire, he'll find a hole. And that was the worst thing to do. Hit a hole, because that hole was already sick, and I said, if he landed down in the hole, he was dead, or wounded, or whatever. Anyway, we ended up in this, where they, it was where they used to put airplanes, I guess. I didn't see a building in the island. There were no buildings, nothing. So they had this this thing dug out where they, you know, if they used to put airplanes in there to keep them from when they bombed the island or something like that. And I was, and then all of a sudden a machine gun started opening up there, and it was only 3 squad leaders riding that revetment there, and we couldn't go no further in that. So I says, I told him, I says, hey, well, wait a minute. I says, I had this satchel charge that I have found. So I told, I said, I'll take care of that. So this revetment where the automatic coming up had already been bombed out. And some Japs had got in there with these Nambus, rifled the automatic weapons, and they was holding us up. So I says, so I got this guy named Danford. I says, come on, Dan, let's see what we can do to this firing going on there. So he followed me up there, and we got it there, and with the satchel charge, we wiped it out, you know. And then on the way back, I got hit right here in the leg, and Danford got shot. He got killed there, and I feel proud of myself that I put him up for a Navy Cross, and he got the Navy Cross. So I feel proud about that, as much as I don't like decorations. Anyway, I went back to where this revetment, where we was at before.
Were you able to walk with the injury, or?
Oh, yeah, it was just a neck. It was not a neck.
It was a flesh.
He went through there real neat. Anyway, I went back.
Bone.
Yeah, and then when I was there, sitting in this upside down cart, it was wheels were up in the air. I was sitting there, and somebody had found a 38 pistol. We were looking at it. I was sitting there. All of a sudden, they tell you that the ones you don't hear is the ones that get you, and that is the truth. Before you know it, I found myself on the ground. All my pants were torn, just about up to here, and there was blood all the way. And I thought, oh my God! I said 1, 2.
Really?
I said,
That's crap.
and that made me happy there. So anyway, I went through there, and then I was there, and then by that time there's a corpsman come up there, you know, and okay, I was sitting there, and then this corpsman come there, you know, he wanted to know the extent of my wounds, so I got off this cart, you know, and he was looking around. He gave me a shot of morphine and everything he's supposed to do. And me, I was going through all this process of chewing things, like, you know, they give you stuff like that to chew on, and you know.
Because of the pain?
Huh?
Because of the pain?
Well, I don't remember having any pain yet.
Well, maybe that's why.
And then I was there, and then when the corpsman was, you know, I was laying something like that. And the corpsman was over me, you know, with his body was over me, looking at my wounds, and all of a sudden I heard this one coming, and I said, and then you know, all that explosion. I felt this other, it hit me in this other leg. I still got a piece of shrapnel there, and I got hit again, and then that poor corpsman took the full blast. And you know, So what am I going to do now?
So you evidently then were evacuated from the island.
Yes, I was.
So you'd been hit 3 times.
Huh?
You'd been hit 3 times.
Yes,
Basically
at that time,
within
short time.
yeah.
And then there was another guy that was shot up worse than I was, I guess. They wanted to take me first. So I told them, I said, no, I said, take this other guy. He's worse off than I am. So I laid there for a long time more. And then finally they come pick me up, and they threw me on this Amtrak. And I was the only one in there. It was already getting dark. And I took, you know, as a rule, I never wore helmets. I used to take them off, and then that day I did. I took that helmet off, and the side of my helmet had a big dent. You know, and I said, oh my gosh, I could have gotten my head blown off. Anyway, they took me to they had barges, flat barges all over the water with guys. They'd been shot. That's what they put them. We went up there. Every barge was full. So we ended up in this. To now, I hear that it was supposed to be the flagship. Anyway, they took the Amtrak above, and I was the only one in there. So I walked in this room where all this brass. They had these nice felt tables and then like that, and everybody was nice in there. I said, "How you doing, Sergeant?" and all this good stuff. So they wanted to throw me. I said, "Do it." I said, "I don't know what." I said, "Don't throw me there. I get you full of blood." He says, "So it's all right. It's all right." And they wanted to wrap me up in white blankets, and I told them, "No, I get them." Finally, after a while, some corpsman says, "Come on, we'll take it down." He says, "Who?" He says, "Where you going? Where are you taking me?" He says, "I would take it down there and clean you up, you know." And then I guess they must have given. I remember them giving me a shot. They says start counting backwards, and I remember counting up to 19, and that's all I remember. The next day I woke. There was an open porthole. The sun was shining and everything in there. I said, "God," I said, what am I doing here?" You know, and the war was still going on, but me, I thought, well, I had it, you know.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead. After you got out of the hospital.
After I got out of the hospital, they sent me to this right here in San Pedro, Long Beach. They sent me to this guard company. I was there until my enlistment was up. It was in 1946 when my enlistment was up. So I spent my time there. After that, I was discharged, you know. And when I got discharged, I didn't have sense enough to apply for disability or nothing, you know. I said, my wits are nothing. Who cares about disability? And after that, I got civilian life, I was roaming around there. I think it's in 1948. I heard about these reserves. They had a football team, so I said, "Uh-oh, I'm a football player now." So I ended up I enlisted in the reserves, and then the reserves broke. You know, the Korean thing broke out, and they got caught. We got caught in the Korean deal. In the meantime, my brothers, I had all my brothers in there. There was only me and my brother went to Korea. My younger brother went back to school. He got lonesome. He joined the army, and then he went overseas. He got captured. He spent 34 months in the concentration camp, you know. So when I went to Korea, we went to the Chosin, bologna, and all that good stuff, you know. And then they wanted to send me home with the rest of the outfit. And I didn't want to go home because my brother was out there someplace. So I know I talked my way somehow. Anyway, I got somebody say, well, there's an opening. Somebody wants a liaison NCO. I said, we're here, so. Yeah, I says, yeah, I'll take it. So I went up there, and I got into the best outfit I ever had in the Marine Corps. Best everything. I was living in town with a full bird colonel and everything, and we had a Jeep of my own, staff car, and we was living in houses.
You were clean.
Yeah, with guys and when we eat, and they said so. So when I first went up there, the guy that picked me up, he told me, he says, he's a master sergeant. He says, hey, you're relieving me. I said, yeah. Well, I said, well, what are my duties? He said, well, you're supposed to type and this and that. I said, type? I couldn't even print. I didn't know nothing about typing or anything. I was relieving him. So when I got up there, and my job was to get stuff from the 5th Army or whatever it was up there and bring it back and distribute it all to all these other outfits. And then finally, when it got time for me to, and the colonel in charge, one day he used to call me Sergeant Pete. He said, Sergeant Pete, he says, you've been here already. He said, you've been here already almost 2 years, he says. Anytime you want to leave or stay, just tell me and I'll fix it up. So I says, okay, finally it got time there where I wanted to leave. And he says, okay, I'll drive you up to the catch your airplane. On the way to the airplane, he told me, he says, Sergeant Pete, let me tell you something. He says, I hope, he says, that the guy that relieves you is as good a man as you was. He said, but, he says, I hope he can type because I was tired during your work. Now, how about that for somebody that I didn't do nothing that I was supposed to do, and he told me that. I think that was a good compliment. And that was the extent of Korea. I mean, to tell him, he says, yeah, after my assignment was varied and all that good stuff, I heard about Vietnam. By that time, I think everybody thought I was glory happy. But anyway, I volunteered. They volunteered me more or less to go to Vietnam, and I had to go to get a passport.
What rank were you now?
At that time, I was a gunnery sergeant by that time. See, I got this stuff. I went to got my passport, and then they sent me to Vietnam. I was over there, and what I was doing, I will not tell you.
Was it classified?
As far as I'm concerned, it was. I got the passport, but I don't know if I should show it to you. But anyway.
So you had 2 tours of duty in Vietnam.
So I went, and then I heard about the Force Recon, so I thought I'd join them. And then I put a little bit of LERP duty. I was a LERP. I was in Special Forces, and you know, bouncing back and forth, you know. So.
And you were discharged in.
Well, by that time I was a sergeant major. By that time I was age. When I was in Vietnam, they used to call me granddad. You know, and by that I wasn't the type to be sitting behind a desk. So I like to be out in the field, and there was no more field for me. Too old. So then I think I hung it up, and I said, here I am talking to you.
Well, Pete, I want to thank you for this interview, and I want to thank you for your service to our country. You're a real patriot. I know you don't want me to call you hero, but I'll call you a patriot. How about that?
You know what? I do not like interviews for the simple reason that when you lead a bunch of men, it's different than following men. When you lead a bunch of men, you worry about them, especially if you lose them. If you lose them, you wonder what happened. What did I do wrong? And you go. I'm sentimental.
Is the camera on? Yeah, because I think this is important too.
Wait, was that on?
Okay, Pete. Well, again, I want to thank you for the interview. I know how
Yeah.
difficult this was for you, but I really appreciate it. And the Veterans History Project appreciates it. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna